This is the second battle between Babykiller and Masterbean. In the first battle, Swebby defeated R3G2, a very cavalry-light R3G2. This is an interesting map. Quite a lot of terrain that can change the outcome of the battle significantly. Quite significantly. Fairly balanced though, since both players are attackers. I think we're going to see a rush for the central hill, but we'll see. So Syracuse, militia hoplites on the flanks, together with thorax swords. In the center we have thorax hoplites, veteran hoplites, Etruscan hoplites, just a mass of hoplites. Thorax hoplites, very nice unit. Thorax swords here, going light on the thorax swords makes a lot of sense. Picked hoplites, then 2 mercenary Italian cavalry, 3 mercenary Italian cavalry. So heavy cavalry, 15 bonus versus large, very nice unit. Now for the Getae, we have Spear Horse, backed up by Dash and Heavy Skirmishers. We have Mercenary Axe, we have Noble Swords, standard stuff for Getae. Spear Horse, Dash and Heavy Skirmishers, and Spears. Let's just fast forward until they move out. So it looks like Syracuse is going to be first in taking the central hill, and the Getae quite content to stay here on its own hill. There are flanking opportunities here, but these flanks could easily get downhill charged, so it's both players sort of don't have an incentive to move down. Now these slingers from Syracuse could force Getae down, because I don't see any long-range skirmish from the Getae. And using the slingers against these noble swords would be a very nice use of them. Getae pushing up, but now Syracuse has the commanding position. There is this small flat, almost flat area here, but it could very easily turn into an advantage for either side. Thorax hoplites charging in, nope. Spear warriors didn't want to take that engagement whatsoever. Now the thorax hoplites are getting pulled out of position. Mercenary axe warriors downhill charge against the thorax could do a great job. Throwing their precursors certainly helps. Mercenary axe warriors on the flanks here as well. No cavalry around to really get the frontal charge. The mercenary axe get into the thorax hoplites. Once again getting into the militia hoplites here, but now the thorax swords come into support, so nicely done there. Thorax hoplites, normally they do much better, but this was not a good engagement for them. Thorax hoplites getting charged by noble swords, and the noble swords are racking up the kills. Slingers starting to make no, they're not really firing, and the militia hoplites are losing decisively, of course, against axe warriors, noble swords. They're going to chew through the mercenary veteran hoplites as well, given the time needed to do so. On the flanks here we have a mercenary axe warrior about to get charged by Italian cavalry, and that's going to hurt the mercenary axe warriors. They do not like getting charged downhill by heavy cav. But here come the Spear Horse in support. It wasn't that bad for the mercenary axe warriors actually. Mercenary Italian cavalry definitely got the worst of that engagement because of the precursors. But yeah, the noble swords fighting up against thorax hoplites. Once again we see a shield wall sort of forming up in a weird position. Spear Horse fighting up against Italian cavalry and militia hoplites. In this engagement, probably best to just get them out and let the spears die, basically. Mercenary axe warriors now up against thorax swords and militia hoplites are going to lose that engagement. In the center though, I mean, these Dash and Heavy Skirmishers, sure, they're firing downhill, but they're also causing significant friendly fire to this Mercenary Axe Warrior here. On the flanks, it looks like, yeah, the spears, combination of spears, Mercenary Axe, and Spear Horse should be enough to finish off these units. And the Syracuse in center is looking very shaky. The Spear Horse pulling around the formation to get at the... Well, I thought they would get at the slingers, but it looks like they're not going to be getting at the slingers. These hoplites are surrounded. Mercenary Axe Warriors losing decisively though against the Mercenary Veteran Hoplites and the Mercenary Etruscan Hoplites. So yeah, the Syracuse actually won the flank here. And they are going to win here. Very important to get these slingers off the field for the Getae. The Dash and Heavy Skirmishers, when they've spent their ammunition, they have 40 weapon damage. So they basically have standard swords for fighting in melee, and they can get some kills late game. They have 60 armor, 26 melee attack, very nice stats for a skirmish unit. But now it's starting to turn around on the flanks here. The Mercenary Axe Warriors, Spear Horse and Spears losing. Militia Hoplites. So the well, it's sort of stabilizing. It's a very even fight here on the flanks, but the center is where it's at because the Noble Swords are now losing. They're fighting so many units: Thorax Hoplites, Thorax Swords, Picked Hoplites, and Mercenary Veterans. A nice downhill charge here by the Spear Warriors. A nice charge here by the Spear Horse into the backs, but the Getae general is dead, and that's a huge problem for the Getae at this point. That's going to mean that in some of these engagements where the Getae had the advantage, morale could be a problem. But it actually looks like Getae is going to be fine here in this flank engagement. The Mercenary Italian Cavalry coming in to smash into the Dash and Heavy Skirmishers. The Spear Horse do not rush in to help them, so they're getting charged themselves. And even though the general was dead, the Syracusan center is getting swamped by infantry, by Noble Swords and Mercenary Axe Warriors. Doing very well here in this engagement though. Won't be long before these Getae units break. The Spear Horse gets hit by a few precursors for good measure, another volley of precursors. And I think that's it for the Spear Horsemen. Over here we have Militia Hoplites fighting Spear Horse in close combat. The Dash and Heavy Skirmishers, they got about 30 kills after charging into melee, which is very respectable against Thorax Swords and Thorax Hoplites. There is this unit of Noble Swords left, so finishing off the engagement against the Mercenary Veterans and the Mercenary Etruscans. Normally Militia Hoplites do very well against cavalry, but when they get downhill charged by heavy cavalry, they are going to lose very, very quickly. Getae winning and allowing the Getae to consolidate a lot of their units, form a second battle line. It doesn't look too good for Syracuse at the moment. Only a few Thorax Swords left. Some Picked Hoplites, Thorax and Mercenary Veterans. Both players can now post themselves on a commanding position, and whoever decides to take the engagement here is going to be at a disadvantage if the opponent decides to stay in their advantageous terrain. But it looks like Syracuse is going to want to reform. Yep. Reforming down here. But the cavalry of the Getae, this is a problem. Getae has so many. They are in red morale. They are shaken. But once the main engagement starts, no cavalry left for Syracuse. Syracuse gets charged and the cavalry comes in and seals the deal. Going Syracuse against the Getae is a risky proposition. Let's see, exhausted, very tired, and these units are also very tired, winded, exhausted. Now, nice charge here by Spears and Spear Warriors against the Militia Hoplites. The main engagement starts. Noble Swords going straight for the Picked Hoplites, wanting to kill the general. The general rallies his men. But it's only a matter of time before the rear charges start happening. The Mercenary Axe Warriors losing decisively on the charge, already wavering, they broke, they're off the field. Thorax Swords, though, going to get charged by Heavy Cav in the back. Dash and Heavy Skirmishers firing into the blob, killing indiscriminately. But Syracuse is getting the worst of this engagement. Picked Hoplites against Noble Swords in Headhunt, not really. And at this point, being very tired, Headhunt, being very tired and exhausted, you can use Headhunt in the beginning of the engagement. So Getae is fighting downhill here, which helps them quite a bit. There are spear units coming in to support. But once Headhunt has worn off, the Noble Swords are actually attacked in the rear and shaken. So it's not really close at this point. There's so much left for Getae. But these Syracusan units are holding their own. Veterans 143 kills, and there the Syracusan general is off the field. He's not dead yet, but he is routing off the field. So another charge from the late game cavalry, just devastating. The Thorax Swords, the only unit left on the field now for Syracuse, together with these mercenary veteran hoplites. And the Thorax Swords are losing decisively, of course. Nothing they can do, really. So, victory there for the Getae. Mercenary Axe Warriors didn't do too well. They don't do too well overall against Thorax hoplites. Slingers basically neutralized. Very nice kills on the Dash and Heavy Skirmishers. Some nice kills on the cavalry here, but it was all about the Noble Swords being able to stay in the fight with all of these mid-tier units and destroy them. Nice kills on the picked hoplites, but Syracuse, even with the rules of the use it and lose it tournament, Syracuse is at a disadvantage against the Getae. The Getae simply has more tools and more effective tools, where the Noble Swords, the main problem, dealing with elite swords, always a problem. And they can struggle a bit if the Mercenary Italian Cavalry manages to get the frontal charge, and then there's a follow-up from Mercenary Veteran Hoplites or Thorax Hoplites, but it's still a difficult proposition for Syracuse. So that brings the score to 1-1 between Masterbean and Babykiller, which means that the next battle is going to determine who advances and who is out of the Use It and Lose It tournament. Strength and honor.